Hi there everybody, Ran here in a wood, clearly. Just before we start this interview, which is a different type of video than we've done before, with some really useful insights from Maud from Adapt that I think you're really going to find useful. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the conversation we had, because it's about half an hour, and I thoroughly recommend watching the whole thing because I think you're going to find it really useful. But if you would like to skip to certain bits, I'm going to put a timeline in the bottom of the video so you can follow along and skip to things that might be relevant for you. But just to give you a bit of background, we recorded this interview about 5 days ago, and of course in the last 5 days so much has happened. Loads of things have changed. The government has done a complete U-turn in terms of what they are giving as grades. Now they're going back to teachers assess grades. We found out today. So all this craziness, but all the stuff we talk about in this video is still very much relevant to you guys. So some of the highlights for me, we get some great insight into what next year will look like. At one point, she literally makes a prediction of the future, and also she talks about an opportunity that all of you guys can get involved with, which is a new beta version of their app, which is essentially disrupting the way tutoring is done. And you'll have the opportunities to get free tutoring. Also with Beyond the Blackboard, what I'm trying to do is start setting up interviews with people who are reliable sources of information to help you guys navigate the decisions that you have to make in this kind of crazy landscape at the moment. We've got a couple in the pipeline, including this one. If this longer form of interview is useful for you, from experts in their field, please do let me know in the comments. And if you are an expert in your field and feel like you can add some insight, please do get in contact with me as well. I'll put my email in the description of the video. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Maud. Just speak like this.
Hi, hello.
Hello.
Welcome
to the show. This is my friend Maud.
This is my friend Ran.
We apparently from CBeebies.
I think we'd be great on CBeebies.
I think we'd be very good. Hello, welcome to Beyond the Blackboard. Everybody who has not seen Beyond the Blackboard, this is a YouTube channel about education, and today I am joined by my partner in crime, Maud. And Maud runs an app called Adapt, which I'm sure you've heard of if you've been following this channel, because I mention it pretty much every video. It's something that will help you schedule your life and plan. So today what I wanted to do was have a bit of an interview with Maud, because she's got a really unique perspective of the education system at the moment, because she has an Instagram page that has what, like 10,000 followers at the moment?
Yeah, we have that, and we also have, using the app, we have like 137,000 people that have downloaded it, so we speak to people a lot. Sure,
exactly. So, I mean, there are very few people in her position that has such a holistic view of what all you guys are saying, all your pains, all your grievances, all of your questions. Maud has been on it, just answering it on a daily basis. So this is why I wanted to pick her brain today. And we are specifically, you know, results are kind of coming out around now at the time of this filming. We're looking towards next year, so we are going to pick her brain and try and get some insights.
Cool.
So thank you very much for coming on.
That's great.
So I guess first question.
Yeah.
In your own words, can you describe what's happening? What is just happening?
In the world?
Yeah, like what with education? Can you just give, like, if you had to do a tagline of what happens in coronavirus, and education, what would you say?
I mean, for the first time in history, education kind of stopped. Not entirely, obviously, we delivered it remotely and teachers were partly prepared for it, but they have never, in the history of GCSEs and A-levels, cancelled the exams, not even during World War II. So for the first time, everything kind of got put on hold. And that has had this massive knock-on effect, because no one really knows how to deal with a situation where the exams get put on hold, and we all have to have assessment, we all have to have academic success or failure, but hopefully not. And if you don't have grades, it's really difficult to progress out into the world. So then there was this whole fuss about how we were going to award the grades, which have gone from, I think, being quite a sensible solution from the government, which was, look, we'll trust the teachers, you know, we'll let them look at all of the data and give a grade which reflects students' progress, which is what I believe as a teacher. I'm an ex-teacher, just like Ran. I believe I would know my students' attainment. I believe that I could accurately predict what I think they could get, and I'm sure you'd say the same, right? Like you can tell who's in which grade band.
Totally, yeah.
And so that was what we had, was we'll trust the teachers. And then they went for, we'll also use an algorithm, a predictive algorithm that may grade them up or down dependent on data, because everyone's obsessed with data these days, I say as a tech CEO.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, the backlash in Scotland has been massive, because ultimately the teacher grades were maybe a touch on the generous side, but ultimately fair, and they would allow pupils to go out into the world and do what they needed to do and get to their next stage. And then this computer just said that it wasn't good enough and downgraded everything. So then they've gone back to, okay, we're going to scrap the computer grades and just give the teacher grades. So now we're in a situation where we don't quite know what's going to happen in England. Latest release is that they will just allow students to have their mock grade instead. This is a problem for a lot of the students that I speak to, because loads of people underperformed in mocks or feel like their mock was deliberately harshly marked in order to like push them forward, which is something teachers do all the time. And so often the mock is not necessarily going to be better. And my suspicion, I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to predict, but my suspicion is that we'll end up going the same way as Scotland and just going, we're going to have to go back to the ones the teachers gave us. Like we can't really, because it becomes a class issue, right? It becomes a level, like a school level class issue, whereby, you know, you and I both taught in state schools in the comprehensive system in London, where data and like previous progress has historically been not great, but people are working really hard on improving it. So we are going up year on year, but the problem is that there isn't enough of a record for a computer to understand that it's reasonable that students could get good grades from those kind of schools. Whereas if you go to Westminster, there have been hundreds of years of data of those students getting phenomenal grades and going on to incredible things. So the computer says, looks completely reasonable, all those A stars, looks about right, grade 9's not a problem. So yeah, I think it will become a bit more of a class issue than the government have predicted it would, partly because the government are people that went to schools like Westminster and Eton and places where they didn't really ever have to wrestle with the difficulties of education across the country. And it's not a representative picture, and we live in a world where the education minister doesn't have to have been a teacher, so doesn't have to know anything about how teaching works, and can just arbitrarily make decisions which affect a whole generation of students. So that is why I am here, that is why Adapt is here. We originally set up as a revision timetable generator, like an organisational tool, which still is, to help people kind of get past this idea of whether or not you had good teaching, right? If you could get your revision done properly and be organised, whether or not you got the best teaching to start with could be mitigated slightly. But during the coronavirus, we've also kind of become like a kind of mouthpiece, or like a way of, we've tried to become a way of transmitting news from on high down to students, because the app has within it a notifications tab, which means that we can actually send out pertinent and important news stories to students. So we will always make an effort to try and keep students in the loop as well with what's happening in education, and we do that as well via the Instagram. And I, all the way through proper lockdown, was doing a 5 p.m. live every day where I could talk to students about their concerns and kind of try and work out what it is that was most required to help you guys feel a bit better. And that's kind of where we're at now, I think, in a nutshell. It wasn't a one-page analysis, it might have been a bit longer, but there's been a lot that's happened this year.
Sure, there's been a lot. I think that's something we can all agree on. A lot has happened this year. And about predictions, I mean, I think we need to start. I mean, we don't know, but when I know it's perfectly valid to make predictions about what's going to happen and try and form some kind of image of what's going to happen in the future, because I think people like you guys kind of need it at home to have some kind of idea that you can think of to start making some kind of plan. So with your knowledge, what do you think next year is going to look like, and on top of that, how can students best prepare for it?
So I think what we know now, the advantage that we have, is that we know that we don't know for the first time. Last year, we didn't know that we didn't know. So last year, everything happened in retrospect. So the coronavirus hit, we had no idea, we were underprepared, and we had to frantically backtrack. Now next year, we don't know whether there's going to be a vaccine in time. We don't know whether they're going to get one out in October as they promise, or if it'll be February, or if it might not be till next autumn, in which case we could be seeing a situation where there are no exams again next summer. But what we do know is that we have to prepare for those situations. So this is where I think this generation of students will be needing to, and I think probably deciding to, take this mock series really seriously, right? Because if you are going to get one crack at it at Christmas in schools before everything goes insane again, get the best grades you can to give yourself the best chance of getting a well-predicted grade next year. But I do also think that even if they have to cancel next summer's exams, they will have put in place an online system. It will have to be, the universities have all of the Oxford finals this year are being administered online and open book. And that's because fundamentally, it sounds cheaty, but you don't have enough time to just be like copying stuff out and looking stuff. You don't know what the questions are going to be. You have a massive textbook of stuff, but you have to know your stuff anyway. So I think they will have to do what they did for the medical doctor graduations, because they wanted to get all the doctors out of the universities and into hospitals as fast as possible this summer. They came up with a super fast system where they just asked them quick fire questions, just too fast for them to actually cheat. So all the doctors finished their exams this summer and went out and worked on COVID wards. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there will be ways, I think. They'll be tricky, but there will be ways to administer it if they can't do the exams. But I still think, cover your backs, guys. You know there's a chance this could all go horribly wrong. It's a plane overhead. There's a chance this could all go horribly wrong. So if it does go horribly wrong again, equip yourself with the best set of results on paper that you can possibly have, and those will probably be the autumn mocks as soon as you can take them. Because I think schools will still schedule those in, whatever happens. I mean, we could be in a second wave by then. So.
You mean autumn exams?
I mean the November, December mocks that we always run at school. Did you do them December or January? Some schools do January.
We did them November, I think.
Yeah, so end of term 1, beginning of term 2, if you're year 11, year 13, there'll always be a set of mocks. And this was the problem this year, because people didn't know they had to do well in them, because they didn't know they meant anything. People just treated them as, I'll just do as well as I do.
I mean, it was literally yesterday that they announced that it meant anything.
I know, but it was all prior as well. So I remember being a teenager and deciding deliberately not to revise for my mocks, because I wanted to know where I was at now. If I'd sat the exams today, what would I get? So I could work out how far I had to go in the months that followed. And my mocks were not great. My mocks were they were fine. Look, I passed everything. I got B's and C's, and it was fine. But then when I did my actual exams, I got 9 A stars and 2 A's, which I would not have got if I got my mocks. And I would have been furious if I'd been given the handful of A's and B's and C's that I got in my mocks when I wasn't really working on doing well. It wasn't the priority then. I was just competitive, so I would have found it very painful. But I also think that both sixth forms and universities and employers will be much more generous with these grades and accepting these grades, because they know they're not real grades. Like, if you go and sit for a job interview and they see your grades are lower than maybe they usually would have expected, they'll know you're the COVID year. They'll know it's the year that everything fell apart. So I think as long as you get what you need to progress to the next stage, you may just have to swallow your pride, which I would have found really hard, and just accept what you've got and just crack on, because otherwise it just gets to be such a nightmare.
Absolutely. I think, and there's also, especially with the university applications as well, you've also got the fact that, by a weird kind of coincidence, they were born on a year where there just aren't that many 17 to 18 year olds at the moment. There are going to be less international students applying this year. But of course that's short term, making sure you get on the next step. Of course, what you're saying, those grades stay with you for life, but I completely agree that we're making predictions here, but this is a global leveler. Everyone's going to understand, you're the COVID year.
It's the first year that something like this has happened so globally as well, because it will affect exam results in every country. It's not just like, the English was screwed. It's like everyone was. So I don't think that it will be the same. I really don't. I think you'll be fine with whatever you get given, as long as it's not unfair.
Totally. And I think next question. One thing that I've said on the channel before is that one of the looking for a silver lining in all this is, what are some of the skills that students are going to get from this experience? And one of the things that I've been saying is that if you have the right mentality in this, you can massively accelerate your way to becoming an independent learner, which is something that I didn't do until I was at university. Actually, that's a complete lie. I was not an independent learner at university until about third year of university. I was DOSing, and then I realised I really needed to work, and then did a last minute thing. it wasn't until after uni I started becoming an independent learner, and now students have potentially an opportunity to become that. And how can Adapt help them to do that?
Thank you so much.
I was trying to think of
that's great. Like, thank you. Honestly, yeah. Like I mean, I don't do these things as kind of product placement, but I think it's nice that you think that it's useful.
I do.
I guess for me, the big white space in education when I was teaching was in organisation and productivity, and I really think that there are so many great services out there delivering amazing content and lots of like quality teaching online. There's so much going on, but no one's really effectively managing to create like a proper, you know, smart timetable that can work out what your plan should be for the next 6 months. And it's a long time, and every year I would have this same conversation with my kids who were going off on study leave in April, where I would say, you need to make a revision timetable and decide what you're studying every day between now and the exams. And they would just say, I mean, how do I do that, and how do I make it good? And even if I make it, how do I stick to it? Because if I don't do everything on it exactly right, then I have to basically transfer it all to different days, and then different days get messed up. So I just thought, we have the power now.
Helicopter this time.
So that helicopter, we're filming right next to the Royal London Hospital, which is one of the like coronavirus hubs, and that helicopter is airlifting patients in, so it may come in and out a few times, but they're doing good work and they're propping up the NHS. So yes, where was I? Oh yes, we have the technology, you know, we have the capacity now to use algorithms and programming to actually create something that takes away that manual job for us. So you don't have to make your own plan anymore. If you just tell it what subjects you're studying and how long you've got, it will divide them up and give you the right amount of them each day to make sure you get to the end in time. Incredibly simple concept. And we've been refining it throughout the process, you know, making it so that now you have the capacity to rate your subject, your topics up front, red, amber, green. So you can rate a whole subject red, amber, green. If you say it's red, you'll get it sooner so that you have more time to get it sorted. If you rate individual modules as red, they'll come up faster. Likewise, individual topics. So you can personalize it to exactly where your areas of need are. And so for me, this was the big light bulb moment, which was, yeah, so it's great to create an algorithm-driven timetable, but it has to be something which people can go onto and be like, oh yeah, that's true, I really do need to start with maths because that's where I'm really screwed. It needed to feel like it was what you needed to be studying. So we created that, and that has been how I think Adapt can help all of you guys. Alongside obviously doing all the notification stuff to give you information about general life and education. But we are also, am I allowed to talk about my exciting new stuff now?
I think you can.
Okay. We're also, so I feel like we went most of the way, and I feel like I let students down at the last minute, because I think there's a huge problem. If you imagine you're in class, right, and you're with a teacher, and your teacher says, okay, and all schools have this same mentality, which is, you know, I'll give you a task. If you need help, you know, first of all, look it up in your own book or look it up in your textbook. Secondly, if you can't find it there, ask a friend, ask a peer. And if you can't find it there, then you can come and ask me. And that is kind of the teacher role.
What do they call it? There's a name for it.
There's like a 3-stage thing. I always hated all that stuff, but people would have it on like posters in their rooms.
I loved it.
Oh, I hated it.
All of those in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
No, I hated all of that. I didn't like the infantilization of education. But yeah, so I thought, well, what we were doing actually is we're providing the first couple of stages, right? So we give you the task and we tell you what to study, so you can look it up online or you can look it up in your textbook. Like, that's really easy to do, and we wanted to make it like that because the point was we were not providing the content. Like, you could do it from whatever you already had, right? If you'd already studied this in class, you had the notes, so you didn't need us to give you new notes. Everyone else was giving you notes. There are loads of amazing revision services out there that are providing notes, but what we wanted to do was to tell you what you should be focusing on. And that was fine up to a point, and then it got to the point where people would be like, but what do I do if I've searched everywhere and I can't find it, and I don't know how to start, and I don't know what to do, and I can't even start revising because I'm so stuck. And the only logical answer is that you would ask a teacher. But there's no way for you to contact any of the teachers who've made all of our study plans, who are the subject teachers, who know all this stuff. And I just thought, well, look, we have this marketplace, we have all these kids that need help and all these teachers who know the answers. And I started to think more and more about the ways in which they could be connected. And more in the only way that students can actually access extra support from adults mostly is through tutoring, conventional tutoring. And conventional tutoring is crap. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's nonsense. I have been a professional tutor for years. I was, because I used to be an opera singer, so I had to tutor to make ends meet. And it's overpriced, it's insanely overpriced. Parents are paying £100 an hour in London. I mean, in other parts of the country, it's more like 20 or 30 pounds an hour, but it's ridiculous. It's too much money. And also, it's the model is really outdated, because actually what you have to do is you have to sign up for this really long commitment where you will see a tutor every week at the same time on a particular topic or on your general subject, and you will just have them for the year. And no tutoring agency lets you sign up for like one session. And if you want to do it, you have to have a consultation, you have to go through all this process. It's just like, what if I just want the answer to my question now? And what if I just want to speak to a teacher for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? So we've started developing this idea for a beta project, which we're going to do in September. And if you guys are interested, please do sign up on the website, where we're going to pull together all of our teachers and have them ready. And we're going to build a little app so that if you get stuck, you can hit a button and you can say, I would like to speak to a teacher about this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. We're not sure yet how long those sessions will be. And then you can get all your stuff answered. Then you can go back to studying knowing that you're doing exactly the right thing because you've spoken to someone who knows. And the beta is all going to be entirely free, partly because we want to help students who are planning to retake in September and October, and also because you guys are helping us work out what's the right way to deliver this. I would love to make this service free for everyone forever, but I have to pay the teachers, right? Like, you can't, it's a service-based business, so if the teacher's giving up their time, they have to be paid a small amount for doing that. And I really think teachers get underpaid as well anyway, so creating a revenue stream for teachers to make some money in their spare time is also great. But what I don't want is for it to be too expensive for anyone to afford it. So the big thing that we're trying to work out through the beta is like, how much feels fair? Like, if you get really good advice, would you pay £5 for that? Would you pay £1 for that? Would you pay £10 for that? And that's the questions we're kind of trying to answer. And would you want a tutoring session to be paid by the minute? So you only have 3 minutes, you only pay less? Or would you rather say, I'm booking a 10-minute session and it's a short one, or it's a 20-minute session, or what's the ideal length of session to answer someone's question? So if you're interested at all in being part of a beta which will shape the way that we're going to disrupt tutoring, then come and sign up and you can have a full free month in September of like as many calls as you want to teachers. You just have to give us some feedback on like whether it was good enough, whether it wasn't good enough, whether you'd pay for it, how much you'd pay for it. And then when we come to start charging in the autumn, probably around November time, then it will be something that you see the price and you're like, yeah, that's fair, you know, that will pay for someone's time. That's not a company trying to scam me out of my money. I think of it as being like Uber for tutors, right? You have to pay for Uber because someone's driving you home. It's a service. Like, you have to pay for tutoring because someone's giving you their time. But you don't have to pay £100 an hour. Like, you maybe want to pay £1 a minute or £5 for 10 minutes or something which feels reasonable. So, and it won't be a subscription either because I hate subscription-based stuff. I mean, unless everyone says that's really what they want. But I just feel like locking someone into any kind of commitment is a bit cheaty. And I would rather they just, you know, even if you only used it once a year on the night before your exam for 5 minutes just to check and answer, that to me is a valuable use of someone's time, not to be like, oh, I've got this thing, so I should just be calling someone because I've paid for a subscription. It's when you need it and only when you need it. And for me as a tutor, that feels revolutionary because I absolutely hate the idea that I still have to go to people's houses for an hour every week and I say, what do you want help with this week? And they're like, I don't really know, like I don't feel like I need help, maybe we'll do my homework. And I'm like, why are you paying for this? Like, why? And also, you know, the other use case is, what if you have homework due tomorrow and your tutor doesn't come till Thursday, and so you can't get any help from anyone? If I'm not getting paid for it as a tutor on the phone, I'm not going to like go over and do an extra session at the last minute because I haven't booked it in. That's not how it works. But if I had an app like Uber that I could just leave open and then be ready to take calls, I could be sitting at my kitchen table eating dinner and I could be taking calls from home, not having to travel places, not, you know, actually being helpful and making a smaller amount of money but in a much more convenient way.
Totally.
So that's kind of the idea. So please get involved if you're interested. I hope it will be helpful to people, but I mean, who knows?
I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. There's going to be, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's going to be a link in the description below. I'm sure wherever it's posted, there's going to be some kind of link to wherever that is below.
For sure. Yeah. And it will be on our Insta, and we'll also we'll have some ads probably on Insta just to see if people haven't found us before.
Yeah.
But mostly people talk about it through word of mouth. So I would say the best deal really is to be in the first batch of beta. And also it will go in priority, right? So when it starts, I am not going to be letting... So when we built the waitlist for Adapt, by the time we launched the beta, we had 40,000 people on the waitlist. If we get 40,000 people who want a month of free tutoring, I'm not going to let 40,000 people in week one. The first 100 people will get in. Do you know what I mean? And then we'll build it up once we have enough tutors to satisfy the demand. But if I let 40,000 people in and I've only recruited 200 tutors, then it's not going to work. So this is all going to be a process of learning together and understanding what's good and what's not, and building something that actually makes your education better and easier and democratizes it so that anyone can afford to have a bit of extra help without having to go through these crazy tutoring processes, which I just don't think anyone really logically should even be considering paying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, I think one of the best things about this new system, why I'm excited about it, is because I think it just gives you guys back some kind of sense of control, which I think is one of the biggest things that you've lost throughout this time. Literally, you've had no control over anything that's happened, which is just so inducing, and suddenly, like your grades aren't, you're not in control of the grades you're being given, and you're not in control of who is teaching you or anything else really. So this is something that you can literally be like, I want to do this right now, and I'm gonna have someone on the end of the phone now when I choose of a topic that I want. And again, it's on back to that independent learning thing. It's just helping you on that path.
Sorry,
I think.
that's my alarm. Yeah, and I also find it really painful, the idea of any money being involved in education. And I know that there will be people wwho say to me genuinely, I can't afford to pay anything, and I know, and that breaks my heart. I just feel like I can't make teachers work for free. It's like there's no way to solve both sides of the problem. Maybe there is, maybe through beta we'll find a way that, teachers can sign up to deliver free tutoring sessions occasionally to people who can't afford it. I would love it if that was the case, but I can't assume that they will all go for that, because I have to give them a viable prospect as well. And I think the thing that's nice about it, right, is that we will never make Adapt paid for. So you won't ever have to pay to use the organisation capacity. You won't ever have to pay to use the app. There'll be no in-app purchases. It will still be a free product. This is just an extra thing that we're adding on top for anyone who wants a bit of extra help. So it's not at all like we're trying to make it a money project. I mean, I'm a state school teacher. I don't really care about money projects, and I also find them a bit ropey, especially now that I'm in tech. Every tech bro, every boy that I meet at a party that is a tech CEO, no offense to them, but they're just all like, monetization, revenue streams, a B2B, C2C, B2B. I don't, the reason I'm here is only because I left my classroom to try and have more of an impact on more students nationwide, and it just feels very alien to me that education could be a place where people make money, and loads of I'm in kind of various weird networking groups with other tech people in edtech as well, and a lot of the conversation in edtech is still around how do we get people to pay for it. So people shouldn't pay for education. Education should be free. The only thing you should pay for is a service, right, which is like having your hair cut or having a drive home, or like things which are reasonable that you would pay for someone's time. I can't see any resources online that would be worth paying for. Do you know what I mean? When you've already got a teacher who probably is spending a lot of time putting together free resources for you, and you've got like textbooks, you've got all the stuff. It feels very odd to me that someone would pay loads of money for more stuff. Anyway, this is all of the musings of a mad state school teacher who is hoping very hard that we can make education fair. Ran and I both trained as teachers together on the same kind of teach firsty.
Which we only found out after we met through this, so it's really weird.
And it's a real thorn, it's a real difficult question, which is why my plea is for beta testers to come and help us work out the answer. Because the only reason I think Adapt is any good is because we've tested everything at every stage of the way with customers. Like every time from the beginning of developing it, we were doing interviews with students every single week to work out whether they liked it or not. Because I think a lot of adults think they know what kids want. And again, I find that a bit patronising, because we don't actually know what the best method is for students. So really you've just got to run extended testing and say, is this what you want? Is this not what you want? Okay, this is not what you want. What do you want? Okay, we can build it. Like, just tell me what you want and I will make it. You know, I have a whole team in the office with their like little coding hats on, doing their little computer code stuff, and they're there trying to build a product for kids. So it has to be what the kids want.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely.
That's my view on education.
Great. Final question.
Okay.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be, and why?
Okay, right. So,
Apart from being a super teacher, which of course you already are.
I wondered if you were going to go there. Yeah, we went straight in. I think it'd have to be manipulating time.
Okay, why?
Because sometimes there's never enough time in a day. Sometimes there's too much time in a day. Like, I think the power to stop time is cool, because then you could actually get loads of stuff done that you needed to do. Also, if you could speed time up, I could speed my commuting time up. I could be like, then you get teleporting in there, don't you? Because everyone says teleporting or flight. You're like, no, but if I could just go and then just like fast forward that and be at the office, I'd be like, I don't have to be on a train, I don't have to experience that. If I am having an amazing evening with my family and I can like slow it all down and just be like, I want this evening to last a month. If I go on holiday and I could slow it down so it felt like that holiday was like a month-long holiday when it was a weekend holiday, that would be amazing. I just can't see any superpower that would compare to the ability to just have time in the power of your hand. And then you also, you could get old at the rate you wanted to.
Sure.
You could do everything.
Is that just off the top of your head? You've got so many.
Well, no. I mean, I've always
already
thought about time, but I think I've thought of a few more reasons there than I had before. But I think loads of people. What are the other answers? Be invisible. What? So you can be creepy. Like, fly because you like being in a plane.
Yeah, sure. I would have gone with fly.
Fly?
Yeah.
Why?
Because not in a plane, but I don't know, the sense of freedom.
I hate
fly to Bermuda.
Oh, can you imagine like how terrifying that would be? What if you got it wrong? The thing is that I'm also very accident prone, right?
Sure.
So if I'm going very fast doing anything, I will crash. Like I absolutely will crash. I find motorways terrifying. When I'm driving the car, I'm like, oh god, any moment. This is how I die. This is what's going through my head the whole time. This is how I die. I make a mistake, and this is how I'd kill everyone in the car. I'm so careful because I'm terrified. I would crash myself if I were flying. I'm too clumsy.
Really?
If I was skiing, I would crash into trees. Like, I'm morbidly aware of my own mortality
Clumsiness.
at all time, and clumsiness.
Did you ever have any blunders in the classroom? From the
all the time, constantly.
What were you a teacher of? English?
English.
Because I was a science teacher, so if I had a blunder, it would be normally catastrophic.
Yeah,
Some kind of chemical going on.
I would have done that.
Fire.
In the office, they call it doing a maud. Like, if I just kind of knock everything over.
Sure.
It's because I'm very impatient and I'm trying to do everything at 100 miles an hour. I find it very hard to like be really meticulous about things.
Right.
So I just always end up knocking things over. I think also it's because I got very tall very quickly as a kid,
right.
and then suddenly I was like, I don't really know how my body works
Where does
anymore.
this go?
It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, my arms and my legs are all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think flight would be lethal.
I don't know. I think it's. I love Superman as a kid.
Yeah, but that's not a viable reason for picking it over everything else as your superpower.
I realise, well, what I need to put more thought into it, I think.
You
because
really
I
do,
asked you,
yeah.
and you came up with such good answer. I was
Yeah.
like, while you answered, I was like, what would I actually be?
Would you pick manipulating time? In reality, now you've thought about
I don't want to
would you
commit
pick
to the
time?
answer. Do you know what? Commitment. Next video, I'm going to say which superhero I would or superpower I would be.
Time.
Yeah. Maybe.
It's got to
I
be
feel like you're trying to coerce me into time. Anyway, it might be time. Let's find out next time.
Yeah, we'll find out next time.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the program, Maud.
This has been lovely.
Yeah, it has.
I'm very sorry if it's been very noisy. I made Ran come to my offices because we're working on stuff, and it is quite noisy around here because of hospital. But
we've got this lovely secret garden.
it is nice.
If you would like to be part of Adapt's beta program, please do go in the link, which I'm sure is somewhere.
Yeah, we'll send it out.
It'll be around. Follow Adapt on Instagram. Download the app. I'm sure they'll find out, all the ways. And if you've liked this content, please do comment below, because we can easily do plenty more. If it's useful for you guys, if these insights and conversations are useful for you from two ex-teachers who don't have any alliances with any institutions or anything like that, we're kind of just musing here. But if it's useful, let us know, and subscribe to the channel if it's YouTube. And
And I mean, I also think like follow us on Instagram as well if you want. Like I spend a lot of time doing lives a bit similar to this, but usually just with responding to questions from kids. So if you have questions and you want them answered quickly, our lives are potentially quite a good way also to engage with that too, I think.
Absolutely,
as well
yeah.
as YouTube.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Maud.